Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Gaucho Amigos. I'm Alex. Today, my guest is Barney Hurley. He is the force behind one of my absolute favorite Twitter accounts and an essential engine of what is referred to as Steely Dan Twitter. For the past few years, Barney has been tweeting out his incredible collection of 1970s and 80s photographs of classic pop and rock musicians. The photographs have been kind of beautifully remastered and touched up to look fresh. And when Barney's posts come through, it's the ultimate timeline refresh. And the band he posts by far the most often is Steely Dan. His account is a major source of inspiration for people to riff on, and just a great historical document of this band. Barney has in his possession seemingly infinite archival images of Donald and Walter, as well as all of the other band members and session guys that I hadn't seen before, for the most part. And it's honestly probably one of the greatest archives of Steely Dan that exists. And, Barney himself was kind of an enigma to me. I had been wondering for years, who is this guy? And where did he get all these amazing photos from? So, I had it in the back of my mind that he was someone I would like to talk to for this podcast. And then by coincidence, we were both recently interviewed for this new Steely Dan edition of the Ultimate Music Guide from Uncut. I've posted about that. You can buy it now, either in print or digital. And anyway, I got connected to him through that, and we met on Zoom and we hashed it out. And it was great to finally meet the man behind a Twitter account that has brought myself and others in the Steely Dan Twitter community a lot of joy over the years. Now, that song you heard at the intro was by Barney's band Samuel Purdy. They were kind of like Steely Dan in that they were a songwriting duo who used a lot of session musicians, and obviously there's some overlap in terms of the kind of sound and aesthetic. It also reminds me a lot of Michael McDonald, Doobie Brothers, and just kind of classic yacht rock in general. But that song you heard at the beginning, that was called Whatever I Do. It's from their lone album, Musically Adrift, which came out in 1999. And I put a link to it in the podcast episode description to the Bandcamp, so check that out. Barney also released a song called Container Zero under the moniker Powder Blue Tux. I also play that song in the episode. And it actually features some of the Steely Dan crew, Michael Leonard and Walt Weiskopf, and I believe Jay Graydon plays the solo on that. So, Barney is not just a fan of Steely Dan, but he's actually gotten the chance to, work with some of the people associated with the band. So, anyway, without further ado, this is my conversation with Barney Hurley. Enjoy.
I lived in Manhattan from January 1990 to August 2003. And I picked up a lot of vintage music magazines from thrift stores, which were really cool then, especially for vinyl, because that was exactly the same point when everyone was getting rid of their vinyl collection. It was just everyone was replacing it with CDs. So you'd go into these thrift stores and there'd just be, 50 cents each, just vinyl everywhere. Obviously, you had to sift through shit, but I had to get it shipped back to the UK. I bought so much. And also the Sunday morning markets. There was a 77th and Columbus. There was a Fulton Street market. There were some really good Sunday markets. And I picked up so much cool stuff, but a lot of vintage music magazines. So I'll cut out a cool shot, put it through Photoshop, post it, and then I notice it's on like Rolling Stone magazine. I'm thinking, fucking hell. Well, I didn't take the picture, so but they tend to regurgitate and turn up all over the place now.
Once they're out there on the net, they kind of get disseminated all over the place. So,
That started during lockdown, and I was so bored that I just started going through all these vintage magazines and being really anal and putting them through Photoshop, getting to as perfect as possible. And also in this current climate, especially on Twitter, I'm just too old for that shit. I just do something for people, like-minded people, that will enjoy, pictures of Michael McDonald pulling a funny face, or whatever.
yeah, well, I have gotten a lot of joy out of your account, and I know a lot of the Steely Dan Twitter community has as well, because in terms of the vault that you've kind of used, to post on Twitter, I feel like kind of there's a universe there, and I feel
Mm.
like the center of that universe is kind of Steely Dan, and everything kind of radiates outward from there. So you have, I feel like the band that you post the most of is Steely Dan, and then all the kind of different session guys and people that they collaborated with.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That it's mainly
yeah.
Steely Dan. As a huge McDonald era Doobies fan, there's a hell of a
Mhm.
lot of Doobies, and and yeah, I'd say probably third would be Earth, Wind and Fire. A massive Earth, Wind and Fire fan. Tower of Power. There's a lot of stuff on there, but if you actually look through them all, probably about 80% would be Steely related. I'd say that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we have really similar music tastes, because my favorite band is Steely Dan, but then I love all these kind of bands that you post that are, in my opinion, adjacent to Steely Dan, whether they actually, played with them or not. So I know you post, I see guys like, Elliot Randall, Larry Carlton, Bernard Purdy.
I know Elliot. I've worked with him a
That's,
few times. So yeah.
yeah. But then also like Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire, Todd Rundgren, I
Oh,
see
yeah.
you post a lot. They're adjacent to Steely Dan. They're
Well,
playing
they're
music.
all just fucking awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the music I love too. So you kind of hit at this really sweet spot for me. And there's, I try to keep things, focused on Steely for the account, but I love, like you posted this amazing photo of Stanley Clark kind of hanging out in his backyard, and he's wearing a Phillies hat and this sort of colorful.
Oh yeah, that was. I took a long time photoshopping that bad boy. That was in Musician magazine, 1979. I put that up the other day, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I took ages photoshopping that. I've got a friend who's
Yeah,
two friends that are graphic designers, and they introduced me to Photoshop ages ago. So I've become a bit of a master. In weird magazines like Producer and
yeah,
Engineer magazine, all these kind of like odd magazines with a hell of a lot of type and not many pictures. You just get this little
yeah,
amazing shot, and you just think, oh fuck, what can I do with this? So I spent like 4 hours, trying to tart it up.
yeah,
Especially those ones, I think during the Katie Lyde sessions, like that, like those. I don't know where they came from. I don't know who took them. And because I buy a lot of negatives on eBay, and if it hasn't got, well, like for instance, not Henry Diltz, but another of the LA famed Laurel Canyon photographers. I contacted him, and he just said, "You can have them." And
oh
he gave
wow,
me a whole. There's one with Steely Dan sitting in Fagan's living room early Steely Dan,
Yeah.
and and he also gave me some ones of them in the Brill building pre Steely Dan, but he's dead now.
Oh, he is. Okay.
So they're my, he said do what you want with them,
Oh, wow.
but some photographers, there's one guy in particular, they charge like there's one really nice photo, and I thought I'd really like, that, yeah, on my in my office wall, and he charged like $800 for like a photo, just a photo size thing,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, it's just a photo, dude. It's going to be in my living room. It's not like it's going to be in my office. I'm not. It's not going to be on a documentary.
My back to the wall, a victim of laughing chance. This is for me, the essence of true romance. Sharing the things we know and love with those of my kind. Libation, sensation that stagger the mind. I crawl like a viper through these suburban streets. Make love to these.
I actually had a fist fight at school over Steely Dan.
Yeah, they inspire
I'm
strong
saying no,
feelings.
they're not. They're not shit. Don't use the word shit when you refer to Steely Dan. You might not like them,
Yeah.
but those records are seminal. And this guy was a Doors fan, and I
Okay.
fucking hate the Doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care what anyone says. I fucking Jim Morrison. I can't sing. Drummer was good.
Yeah.
We ended up having a fight. You know, like I've learned, because I'm 51 now. I've learned now that when someone says they don't like Steely Dan, I just think, well, you just haven't listened to them enough, because you're basically saying I don't like melody, I don't like harmony, I don't like wonderful musicianship, I don't like crisp production. You're basically like saying I don't like amazing songs.
Yeah.
And musicians that don't like Steely Dan, as a musician myself, I fucking hate them. I just say, look, it's because when you listen to a Steely Dan record, especially guitarists, you think, what the fuck is he playing? I could never, what, yeah, I don't even know what chord that is. You're just jealous,
Mm.
you know. I see
Yeah.
Steely Dan as a genre within itself.
Mm.
And I'm not, I love the band, I love Little Feat, there's so many other, bands that I love,
Yeah.
and passionate about, but I can't think of another band that have never done a Duff song, even even songs like that Becker and Fagan hate, like Through with Buzz. I'll take that shit in a second. I love it,
Yeah.
but because um it's kind of, yeah, it's jazz, it's blues, it's R&B, it's rock, and and as a musician, it's just so complex. It's so complex,
Yeah.
and how they manage to cross over, especially Asia, because that I read in an interview with Tom Scott that he was really surprised that that album, really, that was their first platinum album. When I lived in the States, people were saying, "Do you realize how big Asia was?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I live in England. It's pretty big here too." I think it was number 2 in the charts in England. But I see them as a genre within themselves, and I can't think of any other bands that I can say that about, you know, because I there's no other band that soothes my soul like Steely Dan. You know, if I feel down, I put on Deacon Blues, you know, which is quite a tragic song in a way, but that pseudo lux, as Fagan puts it, that phony emotion that he puts in his vocal performance, I
Right.
buy it every time. You know,
Yeah.
I buy it. You know,
Well, he's kind
it's
of doing a performance, but I think even beneath that, there's a soul and a beating heart that kind of makes it all come together. And yeah, I think that's
yeah. I think that I remember. Well, I took a couple of years off music and ran a clothing store in Carnaby Street in London, only for a year, and it was Guns N' Roses tour manager came in, and because we did these joke T-shirts with nuns and Moses, and evidently Axel, whatever his name is, thought it was really funny. So he came in, he said, I want every black XL and XXL. And I had Asia on at the time. And he was like, oh, you know, fucking love Steely Dan. Saw him at the Hollywood Bowl last year. And this was just when Everything Must Go came out, and I got an advanced copy of that. And I said, oh, do you want to check out their new album? And he was like, no, not really. Not really. And I I um I'm a big fan of both of those albums because
hmm.
I think that as a 51-year-old, they're not going to make Countdown to Ecstasy again, are they? You know, they sounded like mature albums that middle-aged men would write. And I know everyone, like there's still things online now like shocking Grammy moments. It's like fuck off. Steely Dan were up for the album of the year in for Asia. Gaucho, Kamakiriad was up for album of the year. Ricky Don't Lose That Number was up for song of the year. Kamakiriad was up for album of the year. FM was up for song of the year. They deserve a fucking Grammy. And if it makes a cunt like Eminem angry, I'm all for it. You know, like if Beck had won, because I thought Midnight Vultures was a really good album.
Yeah.
So I was thinking I'm cool with Beck winning. Radiohead I love, but they've won one already. So but Beck, I thought if Beck wins, I'll be happy. But Steely winning, it was literally that was pre-broadband internet because I was checking my internet in the morning and a friend called me and goes, they did it. They fucking did it. I was going, man, yeah. Just like fucking hell. I was just honestly, it was just like my local football team, Brighton and Hove Albion, the FA Cup is like the Super Bowl of soccer, as you call it. And we were in the semi-finals. So my home city are in the semi-finals of the Super Bowl, and we lost on penalties. But it was exactly the same feeling when Steely Dan won the Grammy, because when it was in the press, friends of mine were saying it's a good album, but they're not going to win. I was going, they are, because the people that vote are people that have won Grammys before,
Mm.
and they're gonna know that it's the best album.
Yeah.
Like nobody's gonna vote for Eminem because he was behaving like a dick.
Well, it's also the Grammy voters. You're right. Who are they going to vote for? And I do feel like it was a little bit of a lifetime achievement because I think Yeah, they had
Yeah,
been
exactly.
nominated.
They deserved it for Asia and
Yeah,
Gaucho and Nightfly. That
yeah,
you know, I like Toto 4, good album, but the Knife is a lot better. I
I
mean,
agree.
come on. But then if you watch, I've got that Grammys on DVD. Donald Fagen's there with his then girlfriend, and he's really looking like, please, I don't want to win
You have that clip?
because I've got it on DVD.
You should
That's the
upload
only.
it because I haven't seen that on the internet somewhere. So it would be
Yeah,
great to have that.
I did post a screen grab
Okay.
of him when it goes to the Nightfly, Donald Fagen, producing. Yeah, you know, Donald Fagen's there just like, oh fuck, because I think he only turned up then because Gary Katz probably said, "Come on, you know, this is my chance. I could win Producer of the Year." But I think I read a thing in Music Week with Irving Azoff saying that he said to them, "You're going to be doing that." That evidently Fagan said, "I'll do Letterman, but that's it." And he said, "No, you'll do what I fucking tell you to do. This isn't. I just, you know how much that album cost?
I don't
To
know.
Against Nature, 7.5 million.
Yeah, that's
It took
yeah.
3 years, 7.5 million,
So they had quite
and
an investment in
it was
that.
the most expensive album of all time until Michael Jackson made one, which was about 8 something million. But Irving Azoff said, "You've just spent 7.5 million of my money." Because it was on Giant Records, his label at the time. And he said, if you get asked to do the Today Show, you're fucking doing the Today Show. And I laughed at that. And then they ended up doing the Today Show.
They did, yeah. And there that is actually on the internet, and it's fun to see them playing and
Yeah.
with all the
Talking to
skyscrapers around them and the kind of the
Katie
crowd.
Couric, is it Katie Couric? Is that her name?
Katie and Al Roker's there, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great little time capsule of I guess pre 9/11 New York because I don't know if they would do that event now.
And we are kicking off the 5th year of our summer concert series with the incomparable Steely Dan. It's been 20 years since there's been any new music from the group, but with the recent release of their CD called Two Against Nature, the wait is over. Donald Fagen and Walter Becker, good morning. So nice to see you.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. Thanks so much for kicking off our concert series. This is a real treat for all of us.
Treat for us, too.
The question is, what took so long? 20 years.
Well, we were just being thorough, you know?
Were you?
Yeah, we didn't want to leave any stones unturned, you know?
But seriously, was there something that kept you guys from doing new music, or were you just busy touring, doing your original stuff?
You know, we just thought we wanted to think about it for about 17 years before we actually did it. You know, it's make sure, you know, that it was thorough.
Didn't want to rush into anything.
Yeah.
You really made a point of staying consistent with your you know, your original sound in this new CD. Why was that so important for you?
Well, it actually just sort of turned out that way. I guess we still like the same things that we liked back then for the same reasons, roughly, and that's what happened.
And you didn't try to update it or change it. And I think your fans are very appreciative. I mean, the CD is getting rave reviews from all corners, which is really exciting. You're about to head to Japan for a tour, is that right?
Yeah, we're going to Japan and we'll head back to the States and Europe in the fall.
Okay, we'll have a great tour. And meanwhile, you're going to start this morning with a classic Steely Dan song.
That's our plan,
guess.
yes.
Which
is Peg.
Peg. All right, Steely Dan.
They didn't do anything for Everything Must Go.
Yeah, because that album got a tepid response. I think I feel like that did not get the reaction.
I really like it.
Yeah.
I think there's people say it opens with Last Mall, like, you know, if you think of Royal Scam, it opened with Kid Charlemagne. It was going, look, man, they're 55, dude. What do you expect? You know, like, you know, like like that album, I was working in a shop, so I just had it on repeat. And just like all Steely Dan albums, it kind of sounded kind of empty upon first listen. And then as it repeated, you know, all the layers started to sort of appear and you know, and I think Green Book is the song Green Book on the album is among one of their, you know, that could have been on Asia, I think. And I think Almost Gothic from Two Against Nature sounds like they wrote that for Katie Lyde.
When she speaks, it's like the slickest song I've ever heard. I'm hanging on her every word. As if I'm not already pleased enough, she hits me with the cryptic stuff. That's her style that took me around.
Do you know I was in a band called Samuel Purdy? Have you heard of them?
That's your band, right?
Yeah, old band when I was
Yeah.
24,
Yeah, I was just looking
25.
it up before talking to you.
Luckily, due to yacht rock, that album's kind of seen a new lease of life because it came out in 95. We recorded it for Sony, and we had a couple of singles out and they dropped us, but we did really, really good business in Japan. And it wasn't until Yacht Rock only got its worldwide release because suddenly it was just like, oh, we're still on the master tapes. Remember that band? It sounded a little bit like Doobie Steely Dan.
Yeah. Because the term yacht rock literally didn't exist when that album came out, right?
No. There's a yacht rock. There's some yacht rock that sort of fans of mine that are kind of like, you know, you like preempted yacht rock, you know, it was just like, no, we didn't, you know. But I did an interview with those two guys, and that they were just the same as you or I in the fact that they used to rummage through the bargain bins in record stores and think, oh fuck, Larry Carlton, Ralph McDonald, oh Sid, you know, looking at all the musicians, I'll give it a go. It's only $1, you know, and you bump into all these albums that are now considered like yacht rock classics.
There was that period in the 90s where that music was very unfashionable. So if you were still, and this was also before the vinyl.
This is when my album came out.
Yeah, this was before the vinyl revival, though. So you could get, you know, Doobie Brothers Minute by Minute, Asia, Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Wonder. You could get these records for $1 or two. I mean, it was, you know, they were giving them away practically, and now they're worth, you know, a decent, way more than that.
I'm blessed enough to have all, like, I've got sealed copies of Asia. I've got,
wow,
yeah, like Steely Dan things about that. Every time I go to the States, well, not so much now, but before the vinyl resurgence, I bought, you know, I had every, you know, original or promo copy and stuff. And it's good because I've got 6,000 albums, something like that, that, you know, I can give them to my son and they'll be worth, when I pop off, they'll be worth a hell of a lot of money. But you're right, there was that point where you couldn't give away a copy of Thriller. You couldn't give it away.
Yeah,
it's just like, why would I want that? It's the biggest selling album in the world. Why would I want it? Now Thriller sells for like £20 in England.
Yeah, I have a copy. I started collecting vinyl just before the resurgence, so I got a lot of these seminal 70s albums for a few bucks, and thank God I did, because I don't even know if I would be collecting vinyl if I started now.
I think it's gonna. I went into a store, a vinyl store, And I was looking at the albums, and I was looking at, I think it was a Stevie album, Songs in the Key of Life, Inner Visions or something.
Yeah.
And I was looking, and it was, I was looking at the mastering facility, and and then I looked at a Gil Scott Heron album, and it said mastered from the original tapes. So I thought, what, they're fucking mastering albums not even from the original fucking tape. So essentially they're just putting a CD on vinyl.
Yeah.
So basically, if it hasn't got mastered from the original tapes, it's just a CD cut onto vinyl. So they're really ripping people off really badly because they all look so good
Yeah.
now because they're get thick, and people just think, oh, that vinyl's so thick, it doesn't make it sound any good, because do you know my solo thing I put out, Powder Blue Tux? Have you heard any of that?
Yeah. I listened to why am I
Containers.
yeah, the one with the comic Tyriad font on the cover.
Yeah, well
I picked
spotted.
up that reference, yeah.
Welcome to my interior world. Welcome to my home. It's not a temple nor chapel, it's just container zero. Welcome to my disposable world. Welcome to my home. It's not a temple nor chapel, it's just where I'm a hero.
I think Spotify kind of, I'm not bitter about it, but Spotify kind of killed music,
It did.
in my
Yeah.
opinion. Because like my son, for instance, he doesn't own anything. Everything's just shared. Or if he likes something, he listens to it on Spotify. So he's never bought an MP3 in his life,
Yeah.
and and I think Irving Azoff did a good thing. He kind of put YouTube. He was suing them for 3 billion or something ridiculous, saying either the artist gets money every time their songs stream, or I'm going to shut you down.
Mm.
And he won. But still, when I receive my PRS checks, it will be still for radio play. It's really healthy, it's really good for radio play. But then you look on the streaming services, you get like 5 cents maybe
Yeah.
each time it's streamed, or less.
Yeah, it's a joke.
It's really so I just, even though I put my stuff on it to
Yeah.
get it out, it only exists on a really archaic rule, doesn't it? It only exists on something in the law that existed way before the internet. So it's only just hanging by a thread on a clause which some music lawyer's going to come along,
Hopefully.
and because I think I'm fine, because I figured out a way to make a living being a musician and make it survivable. But my son and my son's friends and stuff who want to be musicians, although I'm pleased for them, it's kind of like, it was hard enough when I was young, when Sony gave us £300,000 to record the album. But nowadays, you'd never get a £300,000 budget.
Never.
Ronald Fagan wouldn't get 300.
Yeah. Well, things kind of peaked around the release of Two Against Nature. That was the peak of the CD boom.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's been all downhill since then.
Because 3 years later, it didn't.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the only album that hasn't even gone gold.
Yeah. just shifting gears a little bit, are you aware that there's kind of been a Steely Dan renaissance, a revival in recent years? I mean, are you
Yeah, well, I saw online about millennials. There was there's a big thing about dirty work or something because it was on a trailer to Suicide Squad or whatever it's called.
Yep.
And I read a couple of things about, but I don't know how, because people, I think that they've always been big. I don't think there's been a sudden surge in sales.
Okay.
I think it's just I think partly it's due to the fact that it's perceived to be okay to say they're really good now. And I think young people have always been into Steely Dan. When I was at school, I had friends that were into Steely Dan.
Yeah, but this is now 50 years on, and people are more into Steely Dan than they are other bands that were maybe more popular than Steely Dan from that time. So, what's kind of happened is for whatever reason,
well, I
yeah.
have I know that Donald Fagen said he's not sure why. His only guess is that they may have heard it subconsciously for their parents or grandparents. So therefore, there's a warm, cozy feeling when they hear Steely Dan. So
But they
that's
may have heard, the Eagles too, and there's not this kind of surge in interest in the
yeah,
Eagles.
but that's because the Eagles are so boring.
Okay, but I'm just saying there's a specific thing that's happening
Oh,
where millennials and
yeah,
Gen Z are into Steely Dan in a way that other seven, and I think Fleetwood Mac too. There's a couple bands that
Fleetwood Mac. Tusk. I really love
Tusk
Tusk.
is amazing. Tusk is their
Rumours,
best album.
yeah, by far.
Fucking
Rumours
love
for
Tusk.
me, middle of the road, too middle of the road. My mum
Yeah.
had it. It used to do my head in when she. But yeah, if there is such a
Yeah.
thing, I think it's just because they're fucking great, and 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 because there are those reaction videos, like there's too many of them
There's a
now.
million of them. Yeah.
There was a couple of guys like they were listening to Peg, the two college students, and they're like, and then when Jay Graydon's guitar solo, they were like they didn't know what to say,
Yeah, because it's so good.
because it's just fucking. Jay played the solo on Container Zero, that Powder Blue Tuck song,
Yeah.
and Dean Parks had to play it. Steely Dan were doing some music convention, and Dean Parks, they were doing two songs. One of them was Peg. So Jay Graydon taught him how to play Peg. And while he was teaching him, Dean Parks said, "What the fuck possessed you to play this?" Because it is just such an amazing, and not amazing in the reeling in the ears is a great solo, but it's a rock solo.
Yeah.
And then and there's lots of licks,
Licks.
and
Yeah.
but when it comes to it's not a Kid Charlemagne or or a Peg solo, where it's just like mind blowing, like
Yeah.
genre defining.
Yeah. Here's a thought. I think you have maybe had a small piece of this Steely Dan renaissance, and here's why. I think,
How?
and again, I could be way off base, but I think your high resolution photos of Donald and Walter, I think you kind of made them look cool in a specific way. Not cool in the way that we usually think of kind of rock stars from like that era, but I think
They're geeks with shades, aren't they?
they're geeks with shades, but I think a lot of younger people maybe saw themselves or they saw something relatable about these two guys And they were,
That's what Ben Fold said about
yeah,
Steely Dan, that when he was young, first thing he heard was Pretzel Logic, and he looked at the picture and he thought, they're geeks with shades. I get it. I'm a geek too. But
exactly.
anyway, continue.
Yeah.
So 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 the pictures made them look like this
So
couple
when,
of
yeah, so when you put them out on Twitter and everyone saw these, and then all these young people are hanging out at home during the pandemic, they weren't living the rock style lifestyle, so maybe they saw these pictures and they thought, that's me and my friends, that's me and my buddy hanging out at, because they look just like regular guys, they're out. You never see them, at the Troubadour or these places. You never see them out with, hobnobbing with Fleetwood Mac and
no, they
it's
went to
always just
what
the two of them. It's always just Donald and Walter looking kind of like weird and antisocial, but I think people saw themselves and they thought, these guys are my avatars, these guys are my heroes. And I think that is actually, so I'm giving you credit. I think a piece of this
I'll
Steely
take
Dan
any credit
Assance,
I can.
I think you
I'll
get
take
it
a
because
small picture, perhaps.
there were some pictures of them, but you've really like kind of unleashed the vault. Every day I'm still seeing
But
pictures that are new.
I've probably got about 20,000
Yeah, it's amazing.
magazines,
Yeah.
So I'm still thinking, I'm still finding odd, um, odd pictures. I was actually photoshopping something this morning.
Yeah. Well, they're treasurable to me, and I especially like some of these deeper cuts, like the one of Donald and Walter at the Brill Building in 1968 is just like, that's a treasure to me. Any of the 60s Donald and Walter, and it's also that you take the care in terms of the Photoshop or, however you bring them on, because they
They,
look crisp, they look new, they look fresh, and you can
they were
really see
tough.
what they look like.
I'm so in love with this dirty city, this crazy grid of desire. The festive icons along the way, the boardwalk where lovers know how to sunrise. She's kinda cute, but
When I was there was when Giuliani had just started
Mm.
the cleanup. So Times Square still had that sleek, like Show World was still
Yeah,
there.
Eighth Avenue was still what it was back in the day, I think
Yeah,
into the
it
90s.
still
Because
had that.
I grew up in New Jersey, so as a kid, I would occasionally be in the city and I knew what that looked like. Um, so yeah,
I loved it.
yeah.
Just the thing, because I used to watch The Equalizer and Kojak a lot. And so, but now it's really like that area's really lost it. Now it has literally been Disneyfied, hasn't it?
It's terrible. Yeah. I mean,
Like it is
uh,
horrible.
yeah, it's just there's no character to it anymore. It's just a big tourist kind of playland. I did want to ask, I assume you were already a Steely Dan fan before you lived in New York. Did actually living here kind of change how you heard them or change your relationship with the band in any way?
I've been a Steve Dan fan since my dad went to a party and heard Can't Buy a He's a guitarist and heard Can't Buy a Thrill, which had been just released on import, and came back from the party and said to my mum, my dad was a Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton fan. He didn't know Skunk, Denny, and Elliot Randall were, and he said, I just heard this fucking album by these LA guys, and the guitar solos were fucking incredible. And my mum went to Brighton had the first ever Virgin store. Richard Branson opened it in Brighton. I remember it. It was a really tiny place. It had cushions where the kids would sit, where people would look through the vinyl. And my mum bought Can't Buy a Thrill on import for my dad. So I've been listening. So I actually got Gaucho. How old
Yeah.
would I have been? I was born in 71. So in 80, I would have been, I'm terrible at maths.
9.
How old would I be? 9. I got it for my birthday.
Oh wow, so you really go
When
back
it
with
came
it.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it was my mum's friend Jones that sadly just passed away. I remember saying to my mum, "Oh, yeah, what's Auntie Jane got me this year?" And she said, "You're too old for me to tell you what present you got. It's something you haven't got, and something that you're going to like." And I remember opening it, and it's like, and Mum said, "Yeah, it's their new album. It's just come out." I was just like, "Whoa!" So I was I was lucky enough that my parents had a really cool record collection. So I was listening to um, Stanley Clarke, Billy Cobham, Weather Report, Earth, Wind and Fire, George Benson, Rufus and Shaka Khan, Hall and Oates, Steely Dan. That it's had Stevie, just did so much cool stuff.
And that's the same musical universe that you share on your Twitter account. So is it out of nostalgia to an extent that you're doing this
No, no,
account?
it's just my dad was a musician
Yeah.
and my mum a music lover. So I think the only thing I didn't like in their collection is Blood on the Tracks, Bob Dylan.
Oh yeah.
I just didn't like his voice. I thought, as a 5-year-old, this dude can sing, take it off. And Kate and Anna McGarrigle, the French Canadian duo, do you know them?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a
Yeah,
lot of friends who are huge music nerds, so I know all this stuff.
yeah, and I didn't like them, but
Yeah.
everything else I put on, I love. Those are the only two things,
Okay.
Tom Scott and the LA Express. Um,
How about Joni?
oh, of course, I
Yeah.
got into Joni a little later. It was when I
Yeah.
was probably 16, going through my first breakout, my first kind of serious. I thought it was really serious at the time. But looking back, it went out for about 6 months.
Oh yeah.
But I put on Court and Spark,
Yep. That's where
and
Joni kind of starts for me in terms of the albums that I go back to is Court and Spark
yeah,
kind
well,
of
that was
through.
that was her
Yeah.
first kind of 3 minute 30 pop songs,
Right.
and songs like People's Parties, the lyrics are
So
just
good.
just and then I got so favorite Journey album. It's so like Steely. It's so close between Ada and Gaucho. It's either Hissing of Summer Lawns or Court and Spark
Yeah.
because I like some of the early stuff, but um I prefer it when she had a band behind her,
Me
when
too.
she had Tom from the LA Express, behind her, especially, like Miles of Isles, the live album. I thought it just made more sense to me. But then, she's just so insanely gifted.
It's
Like
crazy. Yeah.
she's someone, my girlfriend's like fanatical. I bought a signed Joni album, cost fucking great deal of money. I did. Um, have you seen those places on eBay
Oh yeah.
where they've like got every member of the Beatles
Yeah.
or every member of the Rolling Stones? What, $150? What a bargain!
Yeah, I know.
I know. I
Also,
got.
what about Todd? Todd Rundgren?
Yeah, yeah. I love Todd. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
Because you post
course.
a lot of Todd photos that are new to me, and I, as a big Todd fan, I like there was this one where he's wearing like these
Yeah,
goggles.
I think his career is a bit patchy
Okay.
because he's very experimental.
Mm.
But something anything and something anything.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, something anything, of course, 1972. That is obviously the album that everyone's got, and that's the one that my parents had, you
Hmm.
know.
Right, because it has
So
Hello, It's Me. It has the hits. I saw the
so
light.
that's the one. And then I went later on through his career, and some I can take or leave, and some I really like. But he's certainly a consummate, you know.
Yeah. And he's friends with Donald Fagen. I know that they
Yeah, they
actually,
did that guy with the tinfoil hat,
yeah.
didn't they?
It's the
Yeah.
anti-Trump song, and I believe they're friends in real life as well. But that's, from what
He's
I've
friends
read.
with John McEnroe as well, isn't he?
Oh, Donald Fagen and John McEnroe are friends?
Yeah, yeah. John McEnroe had his wedding. I read John McEnroe's biography
Oh, I
years
didn't know
ago, and he had
that.
his wedding with Tatum O'Neill at Donald Fagen's house.
Well, they're both kind of curmudgeonly in their own way, so I can see how they would be friends
Yeah,
in real life.
yeah. I've never met uh, Donald. There was one moment where I could have, and as we say in England, I bottled out
Yeah,
because I I thought if he's horrible to me, it's going to destroy him.
exactly.